Hello everybody and welcome to another video, and today we're going to be looking at a band I've not heard of before. So I tend to say that quite a lot. Probably just assume that most bands I haven't heard of unless I mention otherwise. Anyway, it's a band called Discrepancies. Now, don't know anything about them, so obviously had to do a little bit of research, and it was very actually hard to find any information about them. The best I could do is dig up an actual bio from the band, so I've had to compile this out of information taken from there. And what I found is Discrepancies is a 4-piece rap rock band from St. Louis, Missouri. The band have formed an undeniably powerful and innovative sound incorporating heavy riffs, soaring choruses, and breakdowns with intense lyricism and hip-hop elements. They released their debut single, Get Hype, in January of 2014 and quickly found success, with the track being downloaded over 10,000 times from their website that year. They then released their debut EP later that same year. In 2015, they set out on tour, playing 50 shows in 60 days. That's a lot of work. I mean, they must have been knackered by the end of that. And they have played alongside such artists as Breaking Benjamin, You and Me at 6, Mushroom Head, Alter Bridge, POD, Sick Puppies, Head PE, Straight Line Stitch, Seasons After, Starset, along with many, many others. There was a lot more info in the bio, but that was just talking about all their releases and stuff over the years. So, they've released quite a few things. And today we're going to be looking at what I understand is actually 2 tracks. The suggestion I got was to look at a track called Wake Up. But every version I found was Prevail / Wake Up, which I believe is, I think the first part, Prevail, is a standalone track, but I think it's only a very, very short track and possibly an intro into Wake Up. So we're going to be looking at both tracks because they're both merged into one music video anyway. So that's what we're going to look at today. Now it says rap metal, or rap rock, should I say, and they've toured with the likes of POD, so I'm expecting it's probably something along the lines of POD or Head PE, these bands that they've toured with. So we'll have a look at this track, see what we've got. So this is Discrepancies, Prevail / Wake Up. Let's have a look.
Headed for the lights, headed for the city, headed for my future if you're not too busy. Maybe you can ride with me, so pull up your tide. Bridges got that homicide sickness, all I need's an eyewitness who can properly depict between skills and shit, between real and fixed, between deals and tricks. Damn shame, my niggas won't change for shit, still trapped behind chains and whips. Yo, these fucking cowards sitting towers, building idols you can follow. Keep it catchy, keep it empty, keep it simple, keep it hollow. I brush it off my shoulder and straighten up my collar. I believe there's a much higher power than that mighty color. Here's a letter of my efforts and the truth is enclosed. Our enemies will flee when their troops are exposed. So all the money and the fame, the jewels and the clothes will never be able to heal the wounds on your soul. Trust me, I know at times it's tough. See, we all fall down, but it's a must that we get back up. And we will never fall, we'll rise above it. Yo, I'm trying to tell you, homie, anything is possible. Overcome any obstacles, ain't no way they'll be stopping you. And we'll never fail, together we'll prevail. And I would never wanna lose these scars, they remind see you hurting, and in fact I know you're mad. From perfectly identical insertions of our past, the anger that you push down surfaces at last. You're certain that they're doing it on purpose and you spaz. But meanwhile I was shot down last week by another young brother, same color as me. Left me in a blood pool, damn, did me wrong, huh? Laughed like it was cool, must have heard it in a song, huh? And the last thing I saw was my daughter on the porch. What was once a loving dad, now a problem to report. Realized the bigger problem is the problem we endorse. Watched her hero transform from a father to a corpse. And of course, the birth was a young black male. And of course, the victim was a young black male. So report the ignorance that you have tracked well. When you rap, make money, kill niggas, make crack sales. Can't you see we're in a state of emergency? We're obsessed and possessed with possessions and currency. And you glorify that curse that you throw inside a verse. We hate the way they treat us, but we treat ourselves worse. Let's stop killing each other and start killing the ignorance. We'll succeed if we proceed with persistence and diligence. Think about women and children if you're needing some sentiment, cause the bullets hurt worse when they're piercing the innocent. Come on. And obviously confused. Understand that this country was designed for us to lose. That doesn't have to depict the destiny that you choose. We really need to switch up the recipe of cool. You don't think you can succeed, but trust me, I know you can. We have too many niggas, I want you to grow a man. We don't have to yell boss for me to hold your hand. We are stolen people, we're treading on stolen land. Intelligence isn't popular, but the only thing that's stopping us is ignorance and hate. Yo, this poverty is costing us, all of us. Not the Bloods, not the Crips, but all of us. The biggest gang in the whole world is the one they call to hold us up. Can't you see we're in a state of emergency? We're obsessed and possessed with possessions and currency. And you glorify that curse, you throw inside a verse. We hate the way they treat us, but we treat ourselves worse. So before you pull that trigger, could you be more considerate, Mr. Officer? Trust me, our family is missing us. Think about women and children if you're needing some sentiment. Those bullets hurt worse when they're piercing the innocent. Come on.
Just a passing phase in the cycle of our nation's life. Certainly times of war, times of reaction throughout the society. But I suspect that we are now experiencing the coming to the surface of a triple pronged sickness that has been lurking within our body politic from its very beginning.
Jesus Christ. That is some incredibly powerful music. So incredibly powerful lyrics, and the video, impactful, very heavy subject matter. This is quite something. And this is the sort of thing I kind of expected this sort of thing. When you look at bands like POD, for example, they're singing about, well, on the Satellite album, which is the only one that I've ever heard. I don't actually know if they released anything after that. But, they were singing about some pretty heavy topics, like with Youth of the Nation and stuff like that. And, excuse me, these two songs seem to be talking about, well, it seems to be mostly talking about racial violence. As you saw there, at the end of that video, the white guy shooting the black guy. I hate using that phrase because I don't like the way it sounds. Anyway, but that's not the point. So it seems to be talking about this sort of violence, the unnecessary violence, and how we shouldn't be fighting against each other. We should be sort of working to end this ignorance of people, the way they perceive other people, whether it be from their perceived class or their skin color. We shouldn't be falling onto little things like this and judging people and attacking them for it. And this sort of falls in line with the the message that I talk about at the end of every single video, you know, prejudice and hatred and intolerance. It needs to stop. You know, and this is the sort of thing that they're talking about here. Now, there's quite a bit of lyrics. They're quite wordy songs. So it starts with... As it turns out, the two songs don't actually merge into each other. I thought like one was sort of like maybe an intro to the second song, but they seem to be two separate songs, and they even sort of separated it by empty space in this video. So I think they just packed them together because this is probably like the opening track and the second track of the album. But anyway, we start with Prevail. It says, headed for the lights, headed for the city, headed for my future if you're not too busy. Maybe you could ride with me, so pull up your tight breeches. Got that homicide sickness, all I need's an eyewitness who can properly depict between skills and shit, between real and fixed, between deals and tricks. Damn shame my N-words won't change for shit. Still trapped behind chains and whips, yo. I definitely can't pull off saying yo. These fucking cowards sit in towers building idols you can follow. Keep it catchy, keep it empty, keep it simple, keep it hollow. I brush it off my shoulder and straighten up my collar. I believe there's a much higher power than the mighty dollar, or than that mighty dollar. Here's a letter of my efforts, and the truth is enclosed. Our enemies will flee when their troops are exposed. So all the money and the fame, the jewels and the clothes, you will never be able to heal the wounds on your soul. So, you know, here he's talking about, you know, these cowards in their towers building idols you can follow. This is like the rich 1%ers who sort of tell people how to live their lives. You know, they are the untouchable people because, you know, nothing can get in their way, and they're telling everybody else how to live their lives. They're looking down on everybody, thinking that they're better than everybody. You know, these rich, smug pricks who think, you know, they're too good to pay taxes, so instead of them getting taxed when they can easily afford it, you know, we'll tax the poor to make ourselves more money, and we're going to make these people that are struggling even more desperate, at which point they will probably resort to these crimes, you know, like going and committing armed robberies, or, you know, just random shootings of people just to steal from them. You know, it's these higher up sort of people that are perpetuating this, you know, this desperation in the lower classes, you know, in the people poorer than them as they see them, you know, the underlings, as it were. So, you know, he seems to be quite angry at that. It carries on. Trust me, I know at times it's tough. See, we all fall down, but it's a must that we get back up, and we will never fall. We'll rise above it all. I'm trying to tell you, homie, anything is possible. Overcome any obstacles. There ain't no way they'll be stopping you. You know we'll never fail. Together we'll prevail. And I know, and I would never want to lose these scars. They remind me that life is hard, but I'm still reaching for the stars. And we will never fail. We'll rise above it all. I try to tell them like blocker, this is Viva la Raza. Long live the people, homie. You will never stop us, and you know we'll never fail. Together we'll prevail. So, you know, he said a line there, you know, I would never want to lose these scars. They remind me life is hard, but I'm reaching for the stars. You know, whilst I have suffered, I know that I'm pushing forward and I'm trying hard to achieve my goals. You know, I don't ever want to forget where I came from. I don't want to, you know, I want to stay grounded in reality. Like, you see a lot of these famous people, for example, let's take one at random. Let's say Kanye West. You know, he's so arrogant and full of himself. He thinks he's so much better than everybody else. He's compared himself to God or Jesus Christ. He said he's the greatest rock artist in the world. You know, he's so full of himself. But, where did he originally come from? How did his life start out? Was he ever one of these people that was struggling on the streets? You've got to remember where you've come from and stay true to who you really are, than sort of letting money, fame, and, all this sort of thing go to your head and turn you into a complete dick, just like he's done. Don't forget where you've come from, because, there were people in that situation who are probably still in that situation who helped you become who you are now. And if you just sort of stand all over them and think you're so much better than them, what are you saying to them? I got to where I am by myself. I didn't need your help. But that's not true. They helped you get to where you are now, and now you're treating them as trash because you perceive that you're better than them. Nobody is better than anybody. Anyway, there was also the thing within that song, there was two different vocalists. There was the main sort of rapped vocals, and then there was the sort of clean vocals, which I didn't actually expect, but they were very welcome and they worked very, very well. So that was quite interesting, and as we all know, I like it when they mix up vocal style. Then it went into Wake Up. It says, I see you're hurting, and in fact I know you're mad, from perfectly identical insertions of our past. The anger that you've pushed down surfaces at last. You're certain that they're doing it on purpose, and you spaz. But meanwhile, I was shot down last week by another younger brother, same colour as me. Left me in a blood pool, damn, did me wrong, huh? Laughed like it was cool, must have heard it in a song, huh? And this is something I've covered before, as I've mentioned before, is the violence within hip-hop culture. Everybody thinks that people who listen to heavy metal are violent and aggressive people, and that they go around killing people. And, that's not true. You find very little violence within the heavy metal community. Obviously there is some. I mean, if you look at things like Burzum, stabbing Grishnak, I think it was. Well, I can't remember the names, but it does happen, but it's not nearly as prevalent as it is in hip-hop culture, with things like drive-by shootings and gang wars, things that like Eminem covered in a song like Toy Soldiers, which I think is a great track, by the way. This sort of thing is, it's all over the place, but for some reason people still insist that people who listen to heavy metal are the more violent people. And this is the sort of thing he's talking about here, because, he's saying, I was shot down last week by a younger brother, same colour as me. So he's talking about black-on-black violence, which, within the hip-hop culture it's very, very common. And he's saying, left me in a blood pool, damn, did me wrong, and laughed like it was cool, must have heard it in a song. And this is, again, another thing that I've spoken about on previous occasions, where people perceive heavy metal to be about Satan worship, sacrificing, evil sort of things, brutal violence and stuff like that. But that's not true. I mean, as we've seen, I've been doing this for 2.5, 3 years now, I can't remember. And at least 95% of the songs that I've covered on this channel have been talking about mental illness, the state of the world, basically trying to help people. Other ones have been telling stories and stuff like that. I don't think I've actually covered a song on this. I may have covered one or two, like when I covered Cannibal Corpse recently. Some of the songs, yes, they talk about brutal, violent murder, that sort of thing, but it's very rare. These days, a lot of heavy metal covers important topics, whereas you listen to a lot of hip-hop music, they're talking about taking drugs, making lots of money, bitches, hoes, and so many of them are talking about guns. Walking around toting guns, toting pistols, shooting caps in asses, this sort of thing. I mean, I've got a I've got a song on my reaction list. I actually looked at the title of it today, and it says "The Shorty with the 40," which is talking about, as I understand, hip hop lingo is a woman with a 40 caliber gun. That's what I understand it to mean. So why is this sort of thing important? It's very common, and this sort of thing, it's unnecessary. Saying must have heard it in a song, and hip hop music does actually have quite a lot of violence in it. And they talk about shooting people, blowing people up. I mean, you listen to things like ICP. I know a lot of their music is tongue-in-cheek, but how many of their songs are they talking about violently and brutally murdering or attacking people? It's quite a lot. When you listen to all of their music, it happens quite a lot. I know the way they've done it is sort of tongue-in-cheek, but still, that sort of thing is very prevalent throughout hip-hop music, and that's the sort of thing he's talking about here. Anyway, he carries on, and the last thing I saw was my daughter on the porch. What was once a loving dad, now a problem to report. Realise the bigger problem is the problem we endorse. Watched her hero transform from a father to a corpse. That is a brutal line. And of course, the perp was a young black male. And of course, the victim was a young black male. So report the ignorance that you have all tracked so well. When you rap, take money, kill N-words, make crack sales. So again, he's obviously been shot on, like, the doorstep of his own home. He's probably at the end of the path, his garden, probably collecting his mail. And he's been shot by this young black male, and he himself is a young black male. Again, it's the black on black violence that is so popular throughout the hip hop culture. I say popular, you know what I mean, it's common. And his daughter is on the porch and has actually seen this this incident take place, so she's had to watch her father get shot, and now she's watching him die. And he said what was once a loving dad is now a problem to report. So that used to be my dad, now I'm having to phone the police or the ambulance or whoever and report him as dead or dying on the front garden. And then he says, watched a hero transform from a father to a corpse. I mean, that is a brutal line, but again, this is such a common thing. And he's going, what the hell are we doing? Report the ignorance that you have tracked well. People know that this sort of thing goes on, but nobody does anything about it. Nobody wants to get the police involved. And obviously, in the US, especially at the moment, there is a lot of problem with the police and racism and stuff like that. But that's not specifically what this is talking about. It's talking about, people know that these drug deals are going on. People know that people are shooting each other. People know, this violence and all this unnecessary bullshit is happening, and they're doing nothing about it. They're just sort of turning a blind eye. And you're going, rather than ignoring it and letting it carry on, do something about it. Report it so we can put a stop to this. So, young girls don't have to watch their fathers get shot in front of their houses. Carries on. Can't you see we're in a state of emergency? We're obsessed and possessed with possessions and currency. And you glorify the curse that you throw inside a verse. We hate the way they treat us, but we treat ourselves worse. Let's stop killing each other and start killing the ignorance. We'll succeed if we proceed with persistence and diligence. Think of our women and children if you're needing some sentiment, because bullets hurt worst when they're piercing the innocent. Come on. Again, some very, very powerful lines in this song. He says, can't you see we're in a state of emergency? We're obsessed with possessions and currency. That's all people care about. To people these days, money and stuff means more to them than someone's life. They'd rather kill someone and steal their money or their clothing or something that this person has. So, that item has more perceived value than a human life, and people are just obsessed with this now. They don't care about people, they just want stuff, and that's something that really needs to stop. And it says you glorify the curse that you throw inside a verse. Again, this is like what I was saying before about singing about violence in most hip-hop or rap music. You know, they're glorifying this idea of violence against another person, you know, regardless of, you know, the reasoning they put behind it. They're just glorifying the idea of violence against another person, and that needs to stop. You know, let's stop killing each other and killing the ignorance. We'll succeed if we proceed with persistence and diligence. Again, you know, stop killing each other. You know, stop fighting each other, and, you know, put an end to this ignorance. You know, people who are sitting there taking no notice, saying, you know, it's got nothing to do with me, you know, so I'm not going to get involved. Rather than doing that, you know, get involved, do something about it, so we can put a stop to this unnecessary violence, and maybe stop more people getting killed, and stop more children having to watch their parents get murdered in front of them, and making countless orphans that are going to be thrown into the system. And because they're from the lower classes, they're not going to, you know, they're just going to end up in a constant state of homelessness. They're, you know, they've lost their family, they've lost their home, and this tends to breed this sort of thing. You know, children coming from violent, aggressive homes, if they're not nurtured, can more often than not end up going into these violent crimes and turning to drugs and stuff like that. So, you know, it sort of keeps building upon itself. The more it's done, the bigger it grows. And, you know, there's a couple of lines there that were just amazing. Think of our women and children if you're needing some sentiment, because bullets hurt the most when they're piercing the innocent. Because, you know, the amount of innocent people that have been caught in the middle of, say, like gang warfares or drive-by shootings. I can't remember, there was something fairly recently. Can't remember what it was. But there was a very young child who was caught in the crossfire of some drive-by shooting or something like that. You know, she was inside a house, and these drive-by people were shooting at someone outside, but a bullet went through either the wall or the window, and it hit a young girl inside the house. She had nothing to do with the person being shot at or the people shooting. She was just an innocent bystander who got brutally murdered because of these gang warfares that are going on, and it's happening all too much. You know, collateral damage from these violent crimes. It's beyond a joke. You know, nobody needs to be shooting anybody. Nobody needs to be that violent to one another over some perceived slight. Carries on. I see you're hurting and obviously confused. I understand that this country was designed for us to lose. That doesn't have to depict the destiny we choose. We really need to switch up the recipe of cool. You don't think you can succeed, but trust me, I know you can. We have too many N-words. I want you to grow a man. You don't have to yell. We don't have to yell. Pause. Hold. Oh. Let's try this again. We don't have to yell. Pause for me to hold your hand. We are a stolen people. We're treading on stolen land. Intelligence isn't popular. But the only thing that's stopping us is ignorance and hate. Yo, this poverty is costing us. All of us. Not the Bloods, not the Crips, but all of us. The biggest gang in the world is the one they call Haul Us Up. So again, yeah, there are again some very powerful lines in here. You know, understand this country was designed for us to lose, because again, they're looked at as the lower class, so they're not treated fairly. You know, the sort of when things like, you know, how are we going to help the poor and unfortunate, and no one's interested in helping them. Well, few people, should I say, are interested in helping them, especially those stuck-up people in their ivory towers, the 1%ers who think that they can do whatever they want. You know, they can have multiple holiday homes, they can claim taxes and expenses. You know, they don't pay taxes because they earn too much money. How that works, I have no fucking idea. But, you know, these people have basically made it impossible for these lower class people to actually survive, and this is what's driving them to violence. This is what is driving them to crime. Excuse me. And it says this doesn't have to depict the destiny we choose. We need to switch up the recipe for course. So it's like, whilst we are made to struggle and suffer because these people are pushing us to these things, it doesn't mean that's what we have to do. We don't have to resort to that. You know, we can find a way around it. We can do it another way. And it says, you don't think you can succeed, but trust me, I know you can. We have too many N-words. I want you to grow a man. Now, I'm guessing he's using the N-word here as a slang term for someone who is, you know, not a decent person, not a good person. And that's only the way I'm reading it in the track, the way he's written it. You know, he's portraying that specific phrase as a person who is possibly a criminal or what have you. But he's saying, you know, I don't want you to be that sort of person. I want you to be a man. I want you to be a good person. Now, I just want to be absolutely clear here. That's how I think he is portraying that specific word in that specific line. That is not my opinion. It says, we don't have to yell, pause for me to hold your hand. We are a stolen people. We are treading on stolen land. And that is another very, very powerful line. You know, we are a stolen people. And I'm guessing that's an allusion towards an allusion, you know, talking about the idea of African Americans coming from slaves, which were basically stolen from another country and brought over here to work on the land of, what do you know, the rich and the popular, you know, the 1%ers, you know. So they are essentially a stolen people. They were stolen from their homeland and brought to America to serve the white folk, basically. And he says we're treading on stolen land, and America is stolen land, as much as Americans refuse to admit to this. You know, Americans are always going, you know, why don't you go back to your home country? That is not their home country. That is where they live, yes. That may be where they're born, yes, but it is not their land. It belongs to the Native American Indians, which, amusingly, a large population of America thinks should go home. And the fact of the matter is, they are home, and most of the Americans that are wanting immigrants to go home are actually the immigrants themselves, and that's what you mean. That's what they're meaning there. We're treading on stolen land. No, that's what I'm guessing it means, and you know, it sounds like a damn good line to me. And then there's another line that I really like: intelligence isn't popular. And this has become very obvious very, very recently. You know, all these people, you know, who feed lies, like all these people of power who are forcing lies out into the public, and the public, rather than actually doing research and, you know, checking facts, they just immediately sort of gobble it up. You know, like all these people who believe that the coronavirus isn't a real thing because they've done their research, which is watching a 3-minute clip on YouTube that panders to what they think. That's not research. But, you know, they're not actually taking the time to actually look at things. You know, people who are saying, you know, masks make it hard to breathe. If that was the case, you'd have surgeons collapsing, you know, in the middle of 12-hour surgeries. You know, they'd be suffocating to death whilst they're doing surgery. No, masks don't make it hard to breathe. But because they've done their research, they know better than the scientific community when they've probably spent all of a week at a community college. You know, that sort of thing. But intelligence just isn't popular. People are just ignorant and stupid and just seem to believe what they're told, regardless of how much evidence there is to the contrary. Where is it going? And it says, you know, this poverty is costing us, all of us, not the Bloods, not the Crips. I'm not sure what Crips are. Bloods, as I understand it, is like brothers, friends, homies, whatever. You know, it's not just individual people that this is affecting. It's not just specific groups. It's affecting everybody. But not everybody falls into this life of crime or violence, you know. So, you know, there are people that have succeeded, but the poverty is affecting everybody, but you don't have to go down that path. Look at the people who are struggling just as much as you, but haven't ventured down that path of violence and crime. And it carries on. Can't you see we're in a state of emergency? We're obsessed and possessed with possessions and currency. And you glorify the curse that you throw in a verse. We hate the way they treat us, but we treat ourselves worse. So before you pull the trigger, could you be more considerate? Mr. Officer, trust me, our family is missing us. Think of our women and children if you're needing some sentiment. Those bullets hurt the worst when they're piercing the innocent. Come on. So, this very, very powerful songs, very, very powerful lyrics, and again, I'm going to say, I like it when songs broach subjects like this, and as I mentioned earlier in the video, I've covered so many videos and songs that talk about these sort of topics, where people perceive heavy metal and rock and stuff to be all about violence and murder and evil and sacrificing and stuff like that. It's in fact the very opposite. I've published over 500 videos, I think, on this channel so far. I can't remember exactly how many. I'm sure it's over 500 or 600. Can't remember. And the vast majority have all had positive messages behind them. Talking about helping people with mental illnesses, helping people who are suffering domestic violence, helping people who suffer with depression, or changing the state of the world before it's gone too far and, we've destroyed the earth. So many songs I have covered talk about positive things like this. Why do we need to perpetuate this culture of violence that is very, very popular throughout the hip-hop world? It's an unfortunate thing, but it's true. There is a lot of violence in the hip-hop world. But for some reason, that's just sort of like, that's just the way it is with them. But if there's any violence that's connected with heavy metal, it's immediately blown up into something really big, really bad, really evil. There's even been movies where serial killers have all been metalheads because heavy metal is a bad thing. I was watching an episode of Criminal Minds just yesterday, in fact, where the first person they turned to as their suspect was a goth. In fact, I think there was 2 or 3 episodes in a row where it focused on people from the alternative metal/rock culture as the main culprits, because that's the way it is perceived, and that needs to stop, because more often than not, these violent crimes come through from the hip-hop world. And talking about I talk about Sophie Lancaster at the end of all my videos, this young woman from the alternative culture who was violently attacked by a group of 5 or 6 people. And who were they? They were young people who listened to hip-hop and rap music. And this was a group of 6 people, 5 or 6 people, and 6 of them against 2 people. And this is what happens. I've been attacked by groups of these people because they don't like heavy metal. They listen to all this sort of gangster rap and they think that violence against people that are different to them is an okay thing because it's perpetuated through the music. My older brother was violently and brutally attacked by people with baseball bats. He was by himself and he was attacked by a group of people with baseball bats just because he listened to heavy metal music. And again, who were these people that attacked him? It was people who listened to mainstream rap and hip-hop music. But again, we're perceived as the evil people. But even so, this shouldn't be going on. We shouldn't be violent towards each other. There's no need for it. We should be helping each other, making the world a better place to live. There is absolutely no need or reason to descend into crime and violence. If you're struggling, that might be that's you're struggling. That's it. But there are people struggling just as much as you, people who are probably struggling even more than you, who don't descend into violence and crime. There's no need for the brutality. It's unnecessary. And, that's what they're talking about in this song. There is a way through it, and we need to stop. We need to work together to work through it. We've got these arseholes in their ivory towers who think that they're better than us and are taking advantage of us and, taking our money from us to make themselves richer. But we don't have to lower ourselves to their pathetic, disgusting, thieving ways to get through life. There is another way. And if we work together, we can make it better. So there's quite a rant in this video, isn't there? So, yes, I think I'm going to stop there. But again, powerful piece of music, pretty decent. It's not typically the sort of music I would go out of my way and listen to quite a lot, but I did quite like it. It was well executed, brilliantly performed. Musically, it sounded great. It was quite heavy in places. It was, it was good. And again, the meaning behind it, very, very powerful. But I will leave that as it is. And if anybody would like to suggest a track for me to react to them, please do so by all means. You can drop a comment in the comment section below, or message me on my Facebook or my Instagram, or you could even message me through my Patreon, where you could also help to support this channel, which would of course be a massive help to me. Could help me improve something around here. I can get this backdrop made to look a hell of a lot better, because at the moment it's just got one Metallica flag and my Slipknot overalls hanging on the wall, and I've got a Pink Floyd poster in the corner. So I want to try and make this thing look a lot better, maybe get a few more flags, and maybe upgrade my equipment, because people have complained about the sound quality of this microphone, and to be fair, it is a pretty cheap microphone, but it's the best I could afford. So any help, if you'd like to help this channel to help me improve the quality of these videos, that'd be hugely appreciated. Because, I don't make anything from these videos. Every piece of content I create for this channel gets immediately demonetized, because, I'm using other people's material, which, I can see and agree with to a certain extent. I am using their material, so it's only fair that they get credit for it. But the fact that they get all of it is a little bit infuriating. But anyway, there is an option in Patreon where you can get your suggestion jumped to the front of the queue, should you so desire it. There is a limit on how frequently you can do that, and that's just to be fair to people who suggest tracks through the more regular means of Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram comments. And do know, if you suggest through those regular means, it could take me a while to get around to your suggestion, since I do get suggested so many new tracks every single day that my list grows faster than I can record the videos. But I do write down every suggestion I get, so it should get done eventually. It just might take me a while to get around to it. Also, Metalhead Reacts is a proud supporter of the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, a British-based charity whose goal is to put an end to hate crimes. One of the main facets of that is hate crimes against people of the alternative culture. And, that's something I believe in very, very strongly, because it's something that's been going on for decades. It's been going on for a very, very long time, but it's always been sort of brushed to the side and ignored. Nothing's ever been done about it. The last time there was widespread talk about this was, as I mentioned earlier, when Sophie Lancaster was violently and brutally attacked. Sophie Lancaster and her boyfriend Rob Maltby were violently and brutally attacked by a group of 5 or 6 people, and they were brutally beaten, kicked, punched, knocked to the ground, and had their heads stamped on so violently that they both ended up in comas. Now, Rob Maltby, he did thankfully survive. He was in a coma for around about a week and a half, maybe a little bit longer. I can't remember exactly how long, but he did thankfully survive. Sophie Lancaster, on the other hand, she was in a coma for 13 days before she succumbed to her injuries and she died. This young woman was 20 years old and was beaten to death just because of the fact that she listened to alternative music and wore alternative clothing. And at the time, as it rightfully should have been, this was all over the news. After a while, as all things do, other news stories came in, so it disappeared into the background. And we've not heard anything similar since. So, in the 14 years since that happened, we've not heard a single similar story in the news. But I know for a fact there have been several hundred, if not several thousand, similar incidents like that. But nothing's been said because no one has died. And that is just unacceptable. We shouldn't have to wait for someone to lose their life before something gets said or something gets done. You know, just a couple of years ago, there was a young woman in Scotland, just up the road from where I live, who was violently and brutally attacked twice within the same night by the same group of people. She was beaten, kicked, punched, knocked to the ground. And again, it was a group of people, a group of 4, 5, 6 people, against this one young woman, beaten brutally and violently, just for the fact that she was a goth. Now, thankfully, she survived the attack. You know, a passing taxi driver put an end to the assault. He didn't stop to see if she was okay, but, you know, he put an end to the attack, and she eventually got help when she got back to her group of friends. But this wasn't in the news. This wasn't in the newspapers. This wasn't on the TV. Nothing was said about this. I didn't find out about it until a friend of mine told me about it. And the only way he knew about it was because he was friends with the person who was attacked. You know, it's unacceptable that that sort of thing happened and nothing was said. You know, every day we hear about all these other hate crimes like sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, religious hatred, you know, ableism, etc. We hear these on a daily basis from the most heinous and violent of these crimes, where someone is brutally murdered because of the colour of their skin, their religious identity, their sexual identity, what have you. Down to the most petty of these crimes, where entitled white women are calling the police because a family of colour are having a picnic in a public space. You know, we hear every facet of these in every media outlet every single day. But some young woman gets violently and brutally attacked by a group of people, and because she's a goth, nothing gets said. That is unacceptable. Just because she's part of the alternative community doesn't mean she does not deserve justice. Doesn't mean that she can just sort of be brushed to the side. You know, I can't get my head around the amount of hatred against these people, you know, against people of the alternative community. I don't understand it. I never have. You don't see it in people who listen to classical or opera music. You don't see it against people who listen to Neil Diamond. You know, you don't see it against anybody except people of the alternative culture. Why? And again, it's like I was saying earlier in the video, it's this perceived idea that we are evil somehow. And it's because we stand out, because we dress differently, because our music taste is so vastly different from what is considered normal, they think that it's okay to attack us, and it's not. It needs to stop. And this is what the Sophie Lancaster Foundation is all about. You know, they want to put an end to this perceived hatred of our culture. You know, people who listen to alternative music shouldn't have to be afraid to leave their houses, you know, for fear of getting 10 shades of shit kicked out of them just because a group of people doesn't like the music we listen to. You know, they don't want to see another family go through what they went through when they lost their daughter. You know, they don't want to see another family have to sit there by the side of their child's bed and watch them slowly die because of the actions of a group of ignorant people who just can't face the fact that not everybody likes the same stuff. You know, they want to stop what happened to Sophie Lancaster from ever happening again. It's something that never should have happened in the first place, but, you know, most certainly cannot allow it to happen again. So if you'd like to find out more about the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, there is a link to their website in the description below. You can go over there, find out what they're working on at the moment, find out what their overall goal is, because, you know, they can explain it a hell of a lot better than I can. And if you can help them out in any small way, obviously you don't feel obligated to do so, but if you can help them out in any small way, whether it's a small donation through their website or something as simple as, you know, one of these wristbands, maybe even one of these ones, you know, they've got a whole bunch of other really cool stuff over there. But, you know, the smallest amount can make the biggest difference. And the sooner we bring more attention to this, the sooner we get more people talking about this, the sooner we can help to stamp out prejudice, hatred, and intolerance everywhere. But we're going to leave that as it is for the time being. Thank you all very, very much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
possessed.